Right, so we've just done a bit of work on the speed sensor now for the dyno. So this is basically the sensor that's going to actually detect the RPM of the front roller. So for cars that we can't get a direct RPM feed with like an ignition clamp or via OBD, so basically older diesels, etc., the easiest way to get the computer to sort of understand what RPM the car's doing is just basically by ratio between the sort of road speed and the RPM, which obviously as long as you keep doing the test in the same gear that you calibrate it in, you'll have a reliable RPM source. So to do that, obviously we've got to have a roller speed sensor. So what we've done here is we've got a Hall effect sensor, which is welded a little bracket onto, well, made a little U bracket here, a 90-degree job, with a hole in it that picks up that bearing main mount bolt. We then mounted a cam belt pulley on the end of the shaft. Conveniently, the shaft actually has a M10 threaded hole in it. So I thought what I ended up doing is using a tapered end M10 bolt, which allows me to snug it up exactly central. So that runs completely true with the main shaft. We've just got our little Hall sensor then, if the camera will focus in, adjusted in to about 1 mil clearance, which is giving us a good reading. You can just see the indicator light on the back side. If I turn the shaft, goes on and off for every thing. We've got 42 teeth on the wheel, so I can just calibrate the unit then to read the 42 teeth per revolution, and that'll give me an RPM feed, which is what we're looking for. And you'll notice the ZX is now mounted on the dyno to do a bit of testing. Right, next little step is going to be getting the airlift working. So as you've probably seen in some of the previous videos, the dyno's got a lift between the two rollers. This is to aid getting the car out. Actually works really well, a lot better than the brakes that we used to have on the Clayton. In fact, with this sort of design you can literally just drive straight on and off with no difficulty at all. Only problem with it being that at the moment the guy has literally just got 2 pipes, well, this is the previous owner, coming off with an air fitting on the end. So you basically have to just hook the hook the pipe to the connections every single time you either put a car on or off the dyno, which is obviously workable, but it's kind of annoying. So I'm going to automate this slightly like we did with the Clayton, by sort of electrifying it. So pretty much exactly the same really as before, just normal push fit connections, some 8mm nylon, a T, a 9T, some adapters and 2 Chinese solenoid valves, exactly the same as on the other one. Cheap and cheerful, they seem to do the job for how often they're used. They're kind of more than adequate really. You're probably thinking, looking at the size of the solenoids versus the 8mm line, this is 8mm nylon, why have I got such huge solenoids? Well, we had smaller ones last time. The thing with these Chinese solenoids is the actual inlet size, so these are 1/2 inch, is not particularly actual, the actual bore size of the plunger. So to get the full flow of 8mm, we find we have to run these much bigger solenoids. I want this to work quite quickly, because we used to have to basically hold the button for like 10-15 seconds waiting for it to pressurise the airbags enough to brake the rollers, or in this case lift the car. So I'd like it to be a bit faster than that, so we've bought these far oversized valves basically, and then just some 1/2 inch down to 8mm push fit reducers. Again, all of this stuff, like all this air fitting stuff, because I remember, you probably remember in the last dyno we used a lot of this for all the water control, etc. Obviously there's very limited amounts that we need in this dyno, but all this stuff is so cheap to get these days online that it's just, you can basically build things to automate stuff so easily and do it all yourself, just with fittings you can buy online in loads of easy, like eBay, etc. You can buy stuff like this now, so it's awesome really. Right, we've been doing a bit of work this evening on some wiring. You got 2 air solenoids that we was fitting there, all fitted in now, all plumbed up. So one's to fill the fill the lift, and one's to drain it. All wired up to some relays and a 12-volt supply in the main control box, so we can control this from the software now. So we got basically on this unit 8 auxiliary outputs, which you can use to run sort of normal 12-volt relays, etc. So I've got 2, one I've named lift up and one's lift down. So if we go for lift up, actually I'll just turn lift down off. You'll notice Chris rising up. Much like if I press lift down, you can hear it draining over there.
and Chris is going back down. So that's basically how we'll aid bringing the cars in and out of the dyno. Again, so we've got lift up, lift down. Ideal. So now that the dyno is pretty much sort of sorted out, it was kind of time to move on to the computer, etc., that we're actually going to be using with it. So we've just kind of put together this sort of trolley arrangement we got going on here. It's an old Sunram emissions tester trolley, so built by the same people as the actual dyno, although not really part of the dyno originally. Just happened to have some decent casters on the bottom of it, and it was fairly sturdy, so we thought we'd use that as a bit of a base. So just got another Sun sort of old workstation machine, very similar to the one we had on the last dyno. Just sort of a high quality, fairly old machine, but they seem to last and they don't seem to die, which is ideal for down here, because it's not the best environment for computers, as you can imagine. So another one of those mounted down the bottom, and then we've got the two screens mounted a bit higher up, and then obviously all the wiring from both of these units is just coming down, and we've bored a 4-inch hole in the side of the wall, so they just sort of disappear into the end of the dyno quite tidily. Right then, so as you saw in the previous video, we've pretty much got this up and running now, but we've run into a bit of a problem with a vibration stroke, something that's sort of triggering the load cell, mainly on coast, and just giving us like a non-zero reading on the coast down, which is obviously giving us a bit of a problem. And I'm pretty sure me and Chris have found it out to be a vibration sort of in this area that's causing it, which is obviously a bit of a problem. So we've just stripped things down again now, and I'm just sort of looking around trying to see if I can see anything that's running out, or that just any obvious problems which aren't particularly obvious. So we've had the DTI and the rotors, they're running absolutely true with literally no movement in them whatsoever, but interestingly we've noticed if we put the end of the gauge on the frame of the retarder fixed then to the chassis, there's about 2 mil of run out in the entire retarder as you rotate. So what I'm wondering is whether or not we've got a slight misalignment here of the retarder versus the roller. Obviously there's a rubber coupling here that will then take that up, hence it spins okay. But if there's any play in those bearings at all, which I would imagine there's a slight amount, then obviously as that rubber coupling takes up the slack, it's going to just push the retarder around. We're talking like literally a couple thou either way, but a couple thou when you're spinning at 3000 RPM is enough to throw things out of balance. So what I'm going to do here is slacken off the pillar blocks and just tap, just nurse it around with a hammer and just see if I can eliminate those, that run out. Obviously I might not be able to make any difference to it, but I'm hoping that we can eliminate it, or at least get it a lot more minimal. Whether that's the problem, I'm not too sure at the moment, but we've got to try each thing one at a time to see if we can rule it out. We have had a look, because obviously when we took the retarder apart, we had to make sure we put them back in the right order, in the right orientation with each other, but we found the original bouncing marks on the rotor. There's a little C stamped on each one, and line those up, so that should in theory be correct. So there's no reason why the retarder should be out of balance. Nothing seems to be sort of bent or missing, so we need to kind of sort that out.